And so when we look at the core of this technology, we are all wearing different lenses when we look at the world. And those lenses are color tinted based on our personality tendencies in any given context or situation. So we're looking at the world through these lenses that we don't even realize are on. And then we're asking other people what color the sky is. And then we're confused when they say it's a different color than what we see. And as a result, we say, well, you must be either trying to trick me or you must be an idiot. But that's not allowing for there to be any grace or understanding. The beauty of this technology is that if I really understand all of these colors and how they function and how they blend together and their centers and their extremes, I can take my lenses off at any moment and put on someone else's. And then at that moment, I am actually allowing there to be more possibility for communication. I mean, you want to even get into sales. It's like, you know somebody's colors, then you know the language that they hear in. And so then you can more accurately speak into that in order to give them really what they're looking for in life.
Right on time. How about that?
That was excellent.
Yeah, that was perfect. But yeah, man, I'm excited to get into this with you. Like I said, I think personality is something that I don't think it's really understood really at the level that it needs to be. And I don't even know if it can be. I mean, you think like, we were talking about DISC before we started rolling. You think about DISC. I guess the one that you're going to introduce us to is another one. There's another, I guess maybe philosophy or concept. I think it's like that there's a personality type, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 or something, which I guess is maybe based on 5. And you would think of like all the people on the planet that there would be more than just 4 or 5 or 6 different types. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's crazy. So yeah, I'm excited to talk to you about this.
Me too. I'm excited to dive in. The first thing, if we're launching into the conversation right now, is that this concept of types or traits, it's not what I believe how personality actually operates. It's more like personality tendencies. So to say that you are one type or that there's one trait of your personality that follows you across all the different contexts of your life couldn't be farther from the truth. We have learned behaviors that also get incorporated, and they're contextual. They're based on different life or emotional states. So an individual's not going to be the same person at work as they would be at home.
Right.
They're not going to be the same person functioning under stress as they are when they are enraged. And so what really truly makes the personality color matrix unique is the capacity to evaluate personality in multiple different contexts of life, and then watch as your color blend begins to change, because we don't typify anybody according to just one color. You're always a blend of 3 colors. There's all 6 are going on in you at any given context, but there's going to be 3 colors that show up in that context that are more pronounced. And we refer to that top color as your primary color, secondary color, and tertiary color. And then whatever you're testing lowest in that particular context, it's going to be a crazy color. It may be something that that can annoy you or frustrate you. You truly do not understand looking at the world through that perspective. And really, like, all of these colors come down to exactly that. It's the perspective through which we look at the world and interpret it.
Okay. Yeah, this is interesting. Before we dive too deep, do you want to tell us who you are, introduce yourself, and then we'll get back to it?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. My name is Corbin Billings. I'm a second-generation personality expert. I stand on the shoulders of giants. There's been a lot of individuals that have made a lot of strides in the field of personology or personality psychology before I came into the picture. And the most prominent of those in my life would be my mother. She's the creator of the primary colors technology, which the personality color matrix that I work with is an evolution of primary colors personality insight tools. It's an incredibly simplistic framework that allows us to look at personality based through the metaphor of the artist color wheel that's behind me. And it's a universal language color that really allows us to be able to speak into behaviors and attitudes and outlooks, but in a way where we're not labeling anybody in a manner that may cause them to be defensive. We're not projecting, we're actually seeking to understand and observe how these colors show up in other individuals. And so I am a author and a speaker and many things, but in this particular arena, it's my pleasure to sort of be here on behalf of the Personality Color Matrix and introduce people to this technology so that they can learn their own colors in different contexts and also learn the colors of their family members or their coworkers. The ultimate goal with this technology is to improve our communication and reduce conflict. And sometimes we may think that that's all about figuring out how to get the other people to see our perspective. And I believe actually the beauty of this technology is being able to adjust our perspective within ourselves. And so this technology has the capacity to save a relationship, but more important, and what I've personally discovered in working with it, is the ability to save yourself.
I like that. Okay, so all right, so how do we break this thing down? Like, because I know there's 6 different colors, and I know we could probably spend hours talking about, you know, each different color or whatever. So like, what is it? Is it broken down over like, well, I guess what would it be? I mean,
behavioral tendencies, certain motivations and perspectives of looking at the world. Now, all of the colors that are behind me, there's no good or bad color. They all have an amazing center, which represents their best qualities or their strengths. Every single color also has an associated extreme, where it's this moment where we move out of making observations about our world and we start moving into making judgments. Now, when that happens, every single one of these beautiful colors turns into a hideous, unrecognizable version of itself. And this being in that extreme headspace is where all of the misery and conflict comes from in our lives. But just to break this down as simplistically as I can, we're going to start with red. And red personality tendencies are defined by determination. This is an individual who sets a goal and lets nothing get in their way of that goal. These people are driven by power and they want to win. So there's a high competitive nature. Let's see, we're going to move on to purple. Purple is another color that is strong in leadership, but in a capacity where it is a very effective manager. It's all about achievement. And as a result, task delegation, making sure that things function and they function on time. When it comes to purple personality tendencies, they love rules. They love making lists. They love planning. They love preparation. Sometimes if you're dealing with someone with strong red tendencies, then it's like, who needs to plan? I know my capacity. I'll just show up and do it. But for the people with strong purple personality tendencies, the plan is what makes them, what guarantees their achievement. And then we look at blue personality tendencies, and this is all about ingenuity. It's the natural curiosity and desire for knowledge. And so these individuals are usually the brightest people in the room if they have very strong blue personality tendencies. And really, I think that what it comes down to there is problem solving, is looking at the world specifically at details. Now, the interesting thing is that they love precision and accuracy. So whereas a purple personality tendency is just like, hey, it works, we're good. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. The individuals with strong blue personality tendencies are constantly tinkering and trying to improve and optimize. There's no such thing as perfection. And so sometimes that can be a elusive chase that causes them to procrastinate. If we get into green personality tendencies over here, this is a different side of the color wheel. It's actually everything that I've talked about up to this point is rooted in strength, which is individuals who think with their heads. If we get into the warmth side of the color wheel, we're dealing with individuals who feel with their hearts. So there's an inherent balance and dance here between what I would call the divine masculine and the divine feminine. But in our technology, we refer to as strength and warmth. When it comes to the warmth colors, we'll start with green, and it's all about unity. It's all about connection, finding that belief in life that leads us. So whereas individuals with strong blue tendencies are driven by finding what's the right answer, and that's going to be based on evidence. The individuals with strong green personalities are going to be saying what's the right thing to do, and it's based on morals. There's a desire it's very, very compassionate color, green, but the compassion is for the group. And so a lot of the times, individuals with strong green personality tendencies, they'll find themselves volunteering for a cause or for a movement that they really believe in. Now, when we look at individuals with strong yellow personality tendencies, it's that compassionate heart, but instead of being focused on the group, or let's say a vision for the future where they want more fairness or equality, what they really want is individual love. They care about the people in their life, whether they're their friends or family that they care about, and they want to show up and be of service to them. It's a color that's dominated by a desire for appreciation and to nurture and be there in a supportive role for the people that they care about. And then we get finally into orange personality tendencies, and this is defined by mirth, which is that joy and thrill seeking. There's a desire to satisfy the self, and that's going to mean leaping at any opportunity, whether that's a new adventure or a new restaurant to try and explore. They're very much in the body and seeking to find that sensation and fulfillment through experience. And so, you'll notice that these colors are almost, they share these cusps where they're aligned. Between red and orange, there's this strong confidence and an outgoingness. Between orange and yellow, there's a strong sociability, and so on and so forth. So really, it's interesting now that we've sort of defined at least the qualities of the colors in their center. If you begin to blend these colors and add them together in 2s and 3s, you actually see different aspects of personality emerge.
Right. Yeah. Dude, okay, so I was taking some notes as we were talking about this, and I like the warmth and the strength. I like that. I like the head and heart. But what I really liked that you said was the masculine and feminine. I think that's a really good way to blend what this and I'm not saying that you're saying that it is that. I'm just saying if I look at it that way, I would rather, like, because I think that the divine masculine and the divine feminine, I don't think that's something that's talked about nearly enough. And I don't think people understand that is a side of a personality that we all have. We all have that, within our personality. But we're going through this, and we're talking about the red, the purple, the blue, the green, yellow, orange. Yeah, I can definitely see, just based on how you said it, like one side is sort of warmth from the heart and one side is from the head. So with my limited experience in disc and these other things, the red seems to match up. That's like the driven, determined people. I'm actually kind of surprised by purple though, because purple is, I don't know why, it's just a color that's always resonated with me. It's my favorite color, but I am not really, like, I appreciate the rules and the constructs around the things, but I feel like being an entrepreneur and being a creative person is sometimes you have to think outside of that sort of box. You know what I mean? I don't like fitting into a box. And so I'm kind of surprised that a color that resonates with me so much in this case is something that is probably on this list, the one that resonates with me the least.
Well, you're not alone in that. Whenever I took the test initially in my personal or professional context, purple shows up as one of my lowest colors. Interestingly, when I take the test in the ideal context, who do I want to be? Purple rises into my top 3 colors. Okay. Now, that's a kind of a dissonance. And there's a part of me to just acknowledge here what purple personality tendencies really embody is consistency. You want to be in the top 1%. Then you have to be consistent. And so what does it take to be consistent? You have to develop routines. And this is where the desire for rules comes in, because you have to be able to maintain routines over time, and those turn into traditions. So the individuals with strong purple personality tendencies are the people that show up, that make sure the trains run on time. It's the 9 to 5 jobs of infrastructure. If any of these colors are going to be an air traffic controller, I want an individual with strong purple personality tendencies. But let's just take it out of like even our real world for a second and apply this. You had earlier talked about how purple is associated with royalty, right? Mm-hmm. When we look at strong purple personality tendencies in their center, maybe in popular media, I'd say Black Panther, T'Challa totally fits this bill. And so within that, he is a king of a country, Wakanda, and Wakanda itself has a lot of rules. Now, when we start off that film, it's hidden and it's isolated, and it's been that way for a very long time because they're trying to maintain and protect their tradition. You can't let the outsiders in. They will change and corrupt the civilization that we have. And so there's also a great deal of understanding that we need to assign this task to this individual, this task to this individual. I don't have to do it all myself. When it gets to the other colors in the strength category, they will take that on to their detriment and the project's detriment. So ultimately, when it comes to purple personality tendencies, there's no better project manager. It's all about creating those systems. And then with Black Panther in particular, he's an individual who, as a superhero, is completely defined by his preparation. It's his suit can absorb all of that kinetic energy and then create a pulse that helps him. It just happens to be a purple color, but it really is defined. They always say, who would win, Superman or Batman with prep time? That prep time and that detective aspect of Batman is the purple personality tendencies that can give him the advantage over a just pure red powerhouse like Superman. I would say pure red centered powerhouse, because all of these colors drastically transform in their extremes in a not so nice way.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. And I think that balance is something that's really important to point out, because, so one of the things that I love about this, I guess we'll call it a chart maybe, or this sort of
technology
behind you. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Is,
sure.
well, it's they're equal parts, and if you take one part out, the entire thing, it no longer exists. It's not consistently, a circle or a pie or whatever, however you want to look at it. So I think that these things, and you mentioned something about conflict resolution earlier, I think all these things in the right setting, maybe to the right degree, sort of contribute to the whole. I think an extreme of anything is probably not good. I mean, it's certainly somebody in the extreme of the red is probably certainly a not a good thing. Or like with the orange was probably not a good thing in the extreme of that.
They're all not a good thing in their extreme, and they just show up in different ways. But you're absolutely onto something. What this inherently speaks to is the nature of connection itself, and that things are not the same, but they are one. Our differences do not actually separate us. There is this inherent connectivity to our existence. This is one of the reasons why, once again, we stray away from anything of defining anybody as a type or a tendency. When you begin to actually work with this color wheel, and then we're exploring the different combinations of three colors, we actually end up finding that there's 20 personality archetypes. Now, these are boxes that individuals will step into. We don't put them inside the box. We're allowing you to understand how you step into a box in different contexts in your life to show up in different ways. Right. And then even getting into this concept of strength and warmth, these two sides. So often in our world, we look at things and we see the duality of it. We see male and female, light and dark, fear and love, land and sea. I mean, our entire reality is shaped by duality on this planet. The amazing thing is that behind that illusion of duality, there is a polarity. These are inherently one that seem to be two. Right. And this really comes down to warmth and strength in a beautiful allegory of a tree. So let's imagine that we have the branches of the tree. Well, these are very flexible, and they're in the wind, and they're also very colorful. They're vibrant. They change seasonally. So there's a lot of willingness to adapt, we'll say. This is also what bears all of the creative fruit. And some could argue that that's the purpose of a tree. Is the purpose of the human experience to be a creator and to spread art into the world? Well, from the warmth perspective, absolutely. This is also sort of why it goes along with the divine feminine. This is the creative soul. Now, if we look on the opposite side of that tree, hidden underneath the soil, we're going to see all of the roots. And those roots are buried, and as a result, they are stuck. They're fixed. Right. That's the tradition, and they provide an infrastructure that delivers all of the nutrition that sustains the tree. They provide the firm foundation that is rooted, that allows for there to be flexibility up here. And so this gets into the, let's say, more conservative outlook of life, as opposed to this being a little bit more liberal. And so in our culture, these two sides have gone to war because both of them are functioning out of their extreme. Now, in the extreme of warmth, we have a desire to avoid accountability. They're very, very good at letting things go. It's almost like dropping the fruit from the tree. But when it comes to taking accountability, warmth begins to feel like it's being targeted. Right. And so then they can look down on the individuals that are embodying the roots and strength and say, wow, they're really stuck in their ways. Why can't they just evolve and grow into the potential that I observe, right? Then you'll also have the people that are stuck in their ways and the roots, and they become very rigid, very restrictive. There's no color. We begin to look at a reality that's along the lines of Brave New World or 1984, where people lose their individuality and become cogs in a big machine. And so then the people that are rooted down here will look up at the warmth and say, wow, what a bunch of fruits. Why can't they just have their feet on the ground instead of being up in the clouds? Now, the beautiful thing is that there's actually a trunk that allows those two sides to be bridged. But what's happening in our current society is that the extreme strength has defined all of warmth according to extreme warmth, and vice versa. And now the branches have an axe and the roots have an axe, and they're both hacking at the middle of that trunk. We're losing the center. And as a result, the tree can't survive. And that's what's happening to the Western civilization at the moment. This is why this technology is so important, because we can essentially help these two sides to understand that they are one. They're not better off cutting the other out of their lives. There's this idea, I call it righteous excision, self-righteous excision, where if I was to cut this part off of me, it would be like removing a tumor. I'd eliminate the cancer. But the reality is that you actually jeopardize and sacrifice the future of the tree itself. It was Abraham Lincoln quoting Jesus who said, "The house divided cannot stand." And that's exactly what's going on in our society. Now, the thing about the strength, they are so good at taking accountability. It is really, really tough for them to let go. And as I said earlier, warmth is so good at letting go, but it's so hard for them to take accountability. The ultimate wisdom that both of these sides are looking for rests in the other. But you put them in a room together, they can barely tolerate each other and their differing outlooks. So one of the things that our technology allows people to do is assess, well, where do you draw your core values from? Do you draw them predominantly from the strength side of the color wheel, or do you draw them predominantly from the warmth side of the color wheel? And it's not one or the other, it's a percentage. Because there is that bit of that, let's say, divine masculine or divine feminine in all of us. The ultimate goal is to find yourself in the center there, where love exists. And that love on the strength side is very resilient. And that love on the warmth side is very compassionate. And when you're able to balance those, you become a uniter who has lots and lots of charisma. This is where I get into the people that have really brought our society together. I think Nelson Mandela would be a great example to start off with. But individuals who have that fortitude to stand up with what they believe in, but also that vision towards something that is a more equitable and brighter future for all.
Yeah, man, there's so much there that I want to touch on. Excuse me. So the tree analogy, I love that. And to bring in sort of the culture, the political space, I think that's a really good move, because that explains a lot of what this personality, what these types are. I think when you think about it with the roots and then the fruit of the tree, the roots are absolutely necessary for that tree to evolve and grow and survive. I mean, you need the roots. You need to have a foundation there. But you can't just stay as a root system of a tree. You just can't just stay there. You have to grow and produce and ultimately fulfill the purpose of the tree, which in this case is to bear fruit. So you need both sides. And I think the analogy that you put of sort of hacking at the middle, I think that's a beautiful way to put it, because I think that's exactly what it is. This makes me think of, like, if you think about, a lot of times this is referred to as left wing and right wing of like a bird.
Right. Belong to one bird.
Right. The same bird. Exactly. And I'm not a physicist. I'm not an aerospace engineer, but I would imagine if a bird just has one wing, best case scenario, it's going to fly around in circles, but it's probably going to hit the ground, So you need both wings to operate. You need both wings in unison to operate. And you need one, I hate to say it this way, but this is what it is. You need one side to set parameters on the other and vice versa, so that when you're sort of acting in a way that's not conducive to the direction of the flight that the bird is going. I mean, I think that's obvious. We're talking about personality, and this is something that I've found sort of just analyzing the political space and the culture, just the culture that we're in, really. It's like when people have these disagreements with someone who's on, quote unquote, the other side, both sides, either side, has such an identity attached to the belief that they're trying to defend. It's like from the outside looking in, maybe from the few of us who are left in the center, somewhere in the center, from the outside looking in, it's like, oh man, this person is like they are dying on this hill of defending this belief. But subconsciously, what's actually happening is they're defending themselves because they have such an identity attached to this. It's like that person, if you disagree with their belief, you're not attacking their belief. You're almost like you're attacking them. Like they are. And that's why I think that's a big explanation of why people go to such extremes with the arguments and the disagreements and everything, because it's not really the belief. It's you're attacking that person because their identity is so tied to that belief. Now, and that's a whole nother. That's a whole other conversation.
Well, no, it's the exact conversation that we need to have right now, because you want to talk about the difference between our technology and something like DISC, is that DISC doesn't necessarily account for this. What you're talking about right now is someone who's so attached to their beliefs that they begin to draw their identity from it. That is green personality tendencies. Now, earlier I was saying they're motivated by what's fair, but that fairness is based on their perspective. And so in the extreme, what ends up happening is, I said this earlier, green at its center, it's a color that's all about unity. But there's a certain point where potentially they become victimized, or somebody that they care about becomes victimized, and it's based on an aspect of their identity, whether it's their gender, their faith, it could be any number of those identity-rooted issues, because these individuals with strong green tendencies have a strong attachment to that group identity. Now, you push that into the extreme at that point once they get victimized, and they become militant fundamentalists. They're extremists in advocation for their belief system. And so at that point, anyone who has a contrary belief system is actually someone that they perceive as being opposition, and they'll go to war with. When we are looking at our political spectrum as it exists in America, at least, we have extreme green in the alt-right, or, if you want to say the MAGA movement. And then we have extreme green in the progressive or woke movement. Mm-hmm. They're both embodying extreme green and a desire to usurp, force change, force revolution according to their moral, ethical standards. And so where you start off with centered green being someone incredible like Martin Luther King Jr. or Gandhi, you take that extreme green and you get the KKK, you get terrorism. You get individuals that are so devout in their belief system that actually the more that they practice that fundamental belief system, the more righteous they actually become. Now, I say righteous as in self-righteous. So it's a big blind spot in our culture, and to be able to tap into that and say, okay, well, why is it that all the people that go kumbaya, all of a sudden, if they're in the room with somebody that disagrees with them at Thanksgiving, they become so vicious? That's the extreme green taking over. I'd say that out of all of the colors and their center and extreme, the difference between centered green and extreme green is the most disparate. It's a huge difference.
Yeah. That was, I see that. And that was actually going to be my question about that. It's like, how can something that starts as what's supposed to be driven by unity can be literally, when it's at the extreme, it's like the farthest thing from that. I mean, it might be unity with a small group of people, but it's like the more unity you get with that group of people in that sort of extreme, the farther away you're getting from everybody else on the other end of the spectrum. So it's like, I mean, and I think this is something that all this can sort of tie into self-awareness, but I think this is one of the reasons that self-awareness is so critical, because we have to know when whatever color, I think you said there's sort of 3 colors that we sort of all operate in, primary, secondary, tertiary. We have to know sort of what this is about ourselves, because we have to know when we are in that extreme. And same thing, like, I think it's very obvious. I see myself in the red. I'm very much in the red, but like even that, especially that, too much of that is the extreme of that is obviously not, you're too assertive. You're too, whatever it is.
You're a bully. You're a tyrant.
Exactly. And so, but like, you have to know like what this is about yourself and where you're at and how these things, they obviously will do well for you in certain areas of life, but you have to know, I don't want to say when to tone that down, because I don't believe in watering yourself down, but you have to know how that comes across in different situations. Yeah.
Individuals with strong red personality tendencies would never water themselves down. The idea, I've really found this, the idea of being inauthentic to someone who has strong red tendencies, it's like a foreign language to them. Wait, why am I not voicing my opinion in order to placate other individuals? They literally can't comprehend that if the tendencies are really strong and red.
Makes
Now,
sense.
if you're dealing with someone with strong orange and yellow personality tendencies, oranges will tell you whatever you want to hear so that they can go back to having fun. This is why when we get into the extreme of orange, they become liars. They will do anything to avoid the consequences or accountability. And then you also get into yellow, and centered yellow is so focused on other people's emotional needs or states that sometimes they can, and they're also extremely conflict avoidant, that they will just become a doormat and allow other people to walk over them in an attempt to appease them. But that really ends up leading them to feel totally overlooked, underappreciated, and then that'll translate into essentially burnout as a result.
You said
that
was
neglect.
That was the yellow.
Yeah, that's strong yellow personality tendencies. It's like in the center, it's the heart, but then you push yellow into its extreme, and it becomes the victim mentality. I think that this is probably a good point to actually maybe identify all of these extremes, and I'll do this as briefly as I can. But yeah, that red is the determination turns into wrath. So instead of holding the shield and you're a guardian for what you protect and what you believe in, a la Captain America, you begin to hold a sword and you're going to you're on a individualistic warpath. It doesn't matter what anybody else says, only what you say. It's my way or the highway. And then you get into extreme purple personality tendencies. That systematicness becomes disregard. They inherently do not understand emotions. It's not my job to cater to your emotional state when you're at your job. So there will just be a point where purple's had enough and they say, okay, it's time for you to pack your bags and leave. They're all about looking at what's the weakest link in the chain, isolating that, and then either improving it through some type of a system or just saying coldly, no, your time's up. If we go into and that also leads into like too many rules. It turns into a nightmare bureaucracy. The reason that a lot of things can't get done in our government is because there's so much extreme purple that's been built into the system where I need approval from this person to even go and get approval from this person. And that's extremely frustrating to an individual with red tendencies. You get into blue, and all of that ingenuity, that problem solving becomes condescension. Individuals with strong extreme blue tendencies can just dismantle you with a look. Their favorite word on earth is idiot. Because they feel like they live in a clown world. None of these people know what in the world they're doing. And if only they could talk sense into them. But there's no hill small enough that an individual with extreme blue tendencies won't die on. They're arguholics. I myself, you see, I'm wearing my blue. I am a recovering arguholic because I have such extreme blue tendencies that then they would not serve me, because in the process of trying so hard to be right, you make everybody else wrong. And it's not very fun to be right but be alone. We covered extreme green and how that shows up as going from like really a focus on collective prosperity into a desire for retribution and revolution. But it's based on the moral and ethics that I perceive as what's quote unquote the right thing to do. And yellow tendencies, while they're so ready to give, they will give until there's nothing left, or people will take advantage of their good heart and their good nature. They'll betray them. And then at that point, they're essentially inconsolable. They will do anything but better themselves because their trauma has become so ingrained in their identity that to even make a plan or pull themselves out of that is actually a threat now to who they are, who they know themselves to be. The extreme orange goes from a place of spontaneity into impulsivity. And so we're never thinking before we act. This is the kids in the Minecraft movie that are going nuts in the theater and trashing the place, all for that desire to seek attention. So people with strong orange personality tendencies are natural entertainers, but then you take that into the extreme and you have the kids that are swallowing Tide Pods in order to go viral, or the kids that are racing their Teslas in 2020 during the shutdown in Echo Park and doing these, launches and then they're crashing into a bunch of cars. It's basically the idea of this: we're going to jump out of a plane but forget to pack the parachute. Chasing all of those highs also brings a low. And so what we'll end up finding is that there's a lot of associated depression and then a desire to solve that through vices. And so individuals with extreme orange tendencies is where all of the addiction comes from. Now, the pivotal moment, we talk about this in our book that's coming out July 25th. It's called The Color Matrix, the Personality Color Matrix, the transformative tool to unlock joy, upgrade your awareness, and reconnect. But what is that pivotal moment when we shift from our center into a hideous, unrecognizable version of ourselves in our extremes? And it comes down to narcissistic entitlement. It is just
that just from the orange, or
no, all of them.
Oh, okay.
Literally all of them. And even if you want to go into like a Jungian sense of the shadow, this is where the shadow comes from. It is all narcissistic entitlement. It is essentially that I look at my reality and I perceive lack. What I have is not enough. And so as a result of that perceived lack, I feel I deserve more. Bam, I'm starting to make judgments, and I'm now operating out of my extreme. That's the feeling of deserving more is what drives the green to go from singing Kumbaya around the fire to demanding change, or other people to change based on their perspective. And it evolves into a Robin Hood mentality. I'm going to take from those who have in order to give to those that I perceive to be more deserving. The individuals with strong blue tendencies feel that they deserve to be right. The individuals with strong red tendencies believe that they deserve power. The individuals with strong orange tendencies believe that they deserve to have fun at the expense of other people. The individuals with strong yellow tendencies believe that they deserve to be appreciated. And so as a result, they'll get incredibly passive aggressive in their extreme. And then the individuals with strong purple tendencies believe that the rules, you must follow the rules. We deserve compliancy. And then at a certain point in the extreme, that'll become, I mandate obedience. If you don't follow the rules, then there's going to be penalties. There's going to be repercussions. So you better put your mask on when you're not eating peanuts on the plane.
Yep.
And so this gets into a society that's really like, you want to talk about the color that's trying to censor everything and control information. It's not necessarily the blue. It's the green mixing in with the purple. My ideology and my belief system drives me to want to control the flow of information.
Yeah. So, man, okay. So first of all, as a red, it's very difficult for me to hear that, because so if I have a goal or whatever that I want to do for myself, the way I see it for myself and for others, that if we have a life that we want to live for ourselves, we should pursue that life, and we are the ones that have to do the work, and that kind of thing. So what you just said about sort of, I forgot how you phrased it, but the message was basically that like when you have that sort of whatever that goal is for yourself. I know with the orange, it's like the impulsivity and et cetera. So it's hard for me to hear that as a red, but that's what I was saying earlier about this self-awareness. We have to know when maybe it's appropriate or applicable or helpful or not helpful to apply, I think, these parts of our personality. And as you're going through this wheel, man, I was thinking, like, I've known people in the orange spectrum. Now that we're having this conversation, I've known people, and it really irritates me that there's like, there's no, it's like some of these people in the extreme, that not in the middle, but in the extreme, these people don't really operate with any sort of direction. It's just like an impulse to do this next thing. They're at a job for a week or whatever it is, and then it's, the next thing. And it's like that. Sometimes that irritates me, because it's like, especially being a business owner, I've had people working with me like that. And that's irritating for the technical reasons. The yellow, I've known people in the extreme of that, and it's like, you're right. These people, they get walked over, and that frustrates me, because I'm like, dude, you should, man or woman, whoever it was in the situation, I'm like, you should set some boundaries here. You should be able to have some boundaries for yourself, because you're being taken advantage of. The purple, I've known people in that too, man. It's just like, dude, you're enforcing rules by this giant company that was, is keeping everybody in this little box. And these rules are clearly like, they're causing more harm than they are good. Anyways, so I've known people, like, as we're going through this spectrum, man, it's just crazy. And that's what I was talking about earlier about the self-awareness, like knowing sort of, I think it's all important for us to know where we are and how these other things are going to maybe make us feel about individuals, other people. And it's like, it's not, you mentioned earlier, it's not right or wrong. I mean, in the extremes, there's right or wrongs. I think there's things that are hurtful to society, but it's like wherever you fall on this spectrum is not right or wrong, because you have to know, like, for me, if I have a goal, if I'm driven towards something, if I have a direction, that is like the same blueprint as somebody in the purple who has whatever they have for these rules. It's like we're motivated by the same thing. It's just, to me, it means it's something different than it is for them. It means something different.
The core motivation would be leadership, but there's different styles of leadership, right?
What I'm saying is, like, it's not fair for me to judge that person just because their internal drive is different from mine. Like, mine might be towards goals, theirs might be towards reinforcing, whatever. The orange might be for experience. Like, it's just different for them than it is for me. You see what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
The beauty of the technology, actually, and this is a great time to get into that. If we find ourselves in an extreme state of one of these colors, and first of all, I just say, you're saying as a red, the reality is that there's two other colors that are going on with you. Nobody is just a red. You can have strong red tendencies, but likely as a business owner, there's that red entrepreneurial spirit, but there's also that purple hat that you begin to wear because you have different crews that are currently operating right now, and you have to hire people for those positions. You have to oversee and make sure that the quality of the work, it gets done on time.
Yep.
And then you're also running a podcast right now. So there is a side of you that likes to put yourself out there and inform and entertain. I think whether or not that's going to stray towards the blue side, because that you're trying to provide information potentially, but you are on camera. Anybody that's in front of the camera creating content in this day and age, in that context, their orange tendencies are at play. So it's sort of looking at how everything blends together. Now, if I find myself like I'm really embodying extreme red, what's my strategy? It's already built into the color wheel behind me. I look at my complementary color. So in that case, and the center of that complementary color, I'm an extreme red. So I'm all about winning at other people's. So that means everybody else has to lose, right? Well, not necessarily. Right. You can go to centered green and you can remember that there's a win-win that you can find. Just because you win doesn't mean everybody else has to lose. So instead of focusing on your individual desires, potentially consider the collective prosperity. Can you practice humility? Can you stay in integrity? Can you share power? All of those are virtues of extreme green, all of those are virtues of centered green. Now, let's say that I go into extreme green and I am now offended on behalf of other people. I am so lost in group identity that I'm performing mental gymnastics in order to justify the righteousness of my side. At that point, the best thing that you can do is begin to pull yourself away from that group identity and develop yourself as an individual. What do you actually believe and what do you actually stand for that isn't the groupthink? And so in that case, there can be a lot of value from individuals that if you ask them who they are and they say, well, I'm a cis, white, Christian, Republican. And I was like, no. What's your name? Who are you? What do you like to do? Stop defining yourself by all of these boxes that you're putting yourself in. But for an individual with centered green tendencies, and especially the extreme green tendencies, couching ourselves in all of those labels, it provides actually a sense of identity, as opposed to defining ourselves by our actions. We define ourselves by our beliefs.
Yeah. And that's actually what I was kind of leading up to earlier about the beliefs. And I think you explained that pretty well. So the complementary colors, is it the color opposite of that color? So it's red,
literal
green.
Color theory, right? So individuals with strong blue personalities, they go into their extreme, they become very, very serious. And at a certain point, they're like catastrophizing. So all of these colors, usually they require another individual in order to go into their extreme, not blue. Individuals with strong blue personality tendencies can just have their phone and be reading the news and spiral out. I know this from personal experience. Yeah, it's akin to Chicken Little saying, the sky is falling, right? Because our head is filled with so much information. Oh my gosh, what's going to happen with India and Pakistan? And how does that now, because I'm so frustrated about what's going on in these global conflicts, I'm creating conflict in my home that doesn't need to be there. So this is where the Joker has to ask, why so serious? Can I look across the color wheel at centered orange and go, how do I get out of my mind and a little bit more into my body? How can I go out and stop taking things so seriously and begin to laugh at things that I don't have control over? Things don't have to be perfect. They can be chaotic and messy, and that can still be beautiful. The same way, if I'm an extreme orange, I should probably take some time to think to remember to pack the parachute before I jump out of the plane. I should take some time to consider the consequences. And then one of the things that really defines centered blue is their honesty. These are people that see problems and then they speak to those problems. Now, if you're on a team, that can be like, yo, why is Dave so negative? He's always just like, I'll bring a thing here, and then he points out all of the issues. Like with an individual with strong blue tendencies, no typo is safe from their scrutiny. And so that it speaks to that honesty. Now, it goes into the extreme. It's brutal honesty, but it's the kind of brutal honesty that's like, hey, I love you enough to tell you that you suck. That's a nice thing, right? If you're in a boat, you want there to be somebody on the boat who's like, hey, we've sprung a hole here. We have a leak here. We need to do something about this. Now, that you can choose to perceive that as negative, or you can see that as a discerning and crucial member of a team. But then, that speaks to that honesty. Now we get over into extreme orange. There's no honesty. Whatever I can say, they're so good with words. People with strong orange tendencies, very, very persuasive, very motivating, very inspiring. But they will literally bend the truth or say whatever they need in order to, number one, get somebody off their back so that they can go and have more fun. Or, tell people what they want to hear so that they can actually ingratiate themselves towards them and, hang out with them. If we're looking, let's see, our last compliments are purple and yellow. And once again, purple is all about the systematicness and an emotional disregard. Emotions just don't make sense to them. Why do I need to encourage you to do your job? That's your paycheck. It doesn't compute. And so what actually also happens with extreme purple is this is workaholics. Individuals that get so focused on achievement or tasks in their career that they actually get blinders on. And so they'll end up missing the dance recital or their son's little league game, and then wonder why their partners are accusing them of neglect. And they say, well, I'm showing up, I'm providing for the family. I'm sorry, I can't cater to your every emotional need. Somebody needs to put food on the table. And so this is where purple turns into that disregard, and they can really the best advice to them at that point is schedule quality time with the people that you care about. Put it into your calendar so that you always make sure that you're taking the time to appreciate the people. This also goes into why we have Employee of the Month. At a certain point, we need to build it into the system that we reward high productivity, because that's ultimately the goal. Now, extreme purple is just going to be like Amazon warehouses, where they say, here, you have this much time for bathroom breaks, and if not, you need to wear a diaper. And there's a desire for pliancy, because if I have a pliant workforce, I can essentially, you don't want to lose this job, do you? And now I have control over them, so I can mandate that obedience. There's going to be a penalty in your paycheck, or this is akin to like breaking the rules in our society, and you get the speeding ticket. The hall monitor energy itself, right? And it's essentially like, I don't have time to listen to your sob story. This plane needs to take off. So you can either, and this is maybe a purple in a borderline extreme, talking to someone in a green extreme. It's like, I understand that you're sitting next to a person in a MAGA hat and that this makes you uncomfortable. We have two options. You can either go on the plane or you can get off the plane. Because the individual with the extreme green tendencies is like, they need to be reseated. This needs to cater to my comfort here. And then the individuals with the purple personality tendencies say, no, that's not how it works. There's rules, and here's the system. It's like and then also the desire to talk to the manager in order to oversee or like get past that. This is where purple comes into the customer base. Oh, don't you know this isn't right? This isn't this is a violation. The individuals that will get pulled over by a police officer and then start to explain to them that they know the Constitution. That's actually extreme blue mixing with some purple there. On the other side of the spectrum with extreme yellow, the best way to sometimes navigate pain is to plan through it. Oh, we can't access my video. What's happened?
Yeah, you froze up. I was just making sure you're still here. Yeah, I think we're good this way. You were talking about, I think you were about to head into the extreme yellow.
Yeah, exactly. I'm happy to pick that right up.
Yeah.
And we can just get one of you nodding and then cut me back in here.
Yeah, which is we'll be good. All right.
So, outside of the extreme purple, on the other side with extreme yellow, the idea is in that state of victimhood where we feel totally immobilized by our emotions. We feel so overwhelmed that the only thing that we can do is call a friend and cry and drink wine in the bubble bath. None of those things are actually helping ourselves. And so, for an individual like you who has strong red tendencies, and you see somebody who's in that victim mentality, who's sort of allowing themselves to be a doormat, it's so counter to red, because you'd say, well, stand up for yourself and practice some self-assertiveness. But the individuals with the strong yellow personality tendencies, they're so conflict avoidant, it truly terrifies them because they don't want to be abandoned as a result of standing up for themselves. Now, that's why yellow, the solution for yellow extremes isn't to go into centered red, because in that case, you're going to go from victim into victimizer. This is like Arthur Fleck in the Joker movie. He lives in a society that overlooks him, treats him terribly. Mother that doesn't lies to him, doesn't love him, and then he's looking for any kind of romantic or social connection. It's all denied to him. And at a certain point, he just snaps, and then he goes and turns, I would say red orange, and then it gets retributive. The solution for those individuals in extreme yellow is to plan through the pain. So what do I do? Like, make a list of what you actually need to do to put yourself into a better life circumstance where you're not going to be treated poorly, and figure out how can you imply systems into your life that allow you to be more emotionally stable. And so once again, just like that strength and warmth, the greatest wisdom that each of these colors can learn from lies in the complement. And so when we look at the core of this technology, we are all wearing different lenses when we look at the world, and those lenses are color tinted based on our personality tendencies in any given context or situation. So we're looking at the world through these lenses that we don't even realize are on, and then we're asking other people what color the sky is, and then we're confused when they say it's a different color than what we see. And as a result, we say, well, you must be either trying to trick me or you must be an idiot. But that's not allowing for there to be any grace or understanding. The beauty of this technology is that if I really understand all of these colors and how they function and how they blend together and their centers and their extremes, I can take my lenses off at any moment and put on someone else's. And then at that moment, I am actually allowing there to be more possibility for communication. I mean, you want to even get into sales. It's like, somebody's colors, then you know the language that they hear in. And so then you can more accurately speak into that in order to give them really what they're looking for in life. So it's the true message here for the personality color matrix is learn to find value and wisdom in perspectives you reject. Because all of these perspectives are valid, but perspective is subjective.
This episode is brought to you by Excel Coaching Academy. Hey guys, I'm really excited to let you know that I started a mindset coaching business. So what I want to do with this business is I want to help entrepreneurs, business owners, salespeople, leaders, and fitness enthusiasts or athletes develop the right mindset to increase revenue, improve business or performance, and overcome the challenges needed to become the best version of themselves. You can get more information about this by emailing info@excelcoaching.academy. Exactly. Yeah. And that's kind of been the point I've been making this whole time about this, man. You were talking earlier, and so I appreciate you talking about the complementary, because I was going to ask you that if the placement on the chart mattered, and it sounds like it does.
Absolutely.
So I'm thinking about this. We're having this conversation. We're talking about the purples. Like you mentioned the Amazon warehouse, having the limited bathroom breaks and all that. I've heard of that. And before I started my landscaping company a little over 10 years ago, I had probably 40 jobs. And that sounds a little impulsive. Maybe it was, I don't know. But the reason I had it is because the landscaping was my primary thing. I was going to make this work. I would, miss work to do this. And anyways, so I bounced around from different jobs while I was building this thing. But like some of these jobs, and I've worked for, huge companies, like big warehousing, manufacturing, that kind of thing. And these rules, it wasn't as strict as what you're talking about with Amazon, but like the bathroom breaks, like you would have to call somebody over to man your station while you went to the bathroom. Your break was exactly 30 minutes, not 31, not 30, not 29, exactly 30. I'm like, dude, this is ridiculous. So the whole time I've been thinking about this, I thought maybe that was the red, but I don't know. That might be the orange. Maybe that's the orange. Like I mean,
Yes. I'm telling you, man, this is why it's going to change in different contexts, but you have strong orange tendencies just in the fact that you do a podcast,
hmm,
and you can maybe if you were to take the test in the context of your professional career at that time, when you were open to all of these different possibilities and new experiences, orange may have
yep,
been more pronounced. Now, as a business owner, and you've stepped in and you really found that career that's working for you,
yep,
the orange may have subsided and been replaced with more purple, where
hmm,
you're now having to institute rules that they don't have to be as strict or rigid as the companies that you've worked for in the past, but there has to be uh, boundaries, like you were saying earlier, right? That is a purple's favorite word, maybe after lists. But
yeah,
there have to be boundaries in place in order to ensure efficiency and productivity. These
hmm,
are just the overall effectiveness of something.
yep,
And that's usually data driven. Individuals with strong red tendencies have a gut feeling, and they know they're right. And it doesn't matter what anybody says; they'll get to the very end of the venture, and then maybe at that point it hasn't worked out, and then they go, "Okay, well, maybe I should have listened to somebody and been a little bit more centered green and fair.
yeah.
I wouldn't have ended up here."
Yeah. So I think you make a good point too about sort of this, like this contextual application of where to sort of apply these things. Cause like we're having this conversation and we're talking about the rules. Maybe, I don't know, maybe that is an orange thing. I do see some of the purple in there these days, but I also see the blue as far as, well, I guess, first of all, my personal, I don't want to use the word ambition because that mixes with the red, but like my personal ambition to gain knowledge on certain things, I maybe fall
Okay.
into the blue. But like
Curiosity.
also, yeah, curiosity, but also problem solving. So like I feel like I do a lot of that in my professional life, and I think that when you have sort of these traits, this is just from my personal experience, when you have the traits from the red in this situation, and they mix with that curiosity and that problem solving from the blue, dude, you become like that's I think that's how a person becomes resilient in sort of that business space, because when you're just sitting there solving problems and that's kind of what you're doing, like you're just moving forward, taking care of these things. However, where that might be a bad combination is like intimate relationships. You can't take that same energy, the blue red problem solving, the driven problem solving, and apply it to an intimate relationship, because maybe then if there's an argument or whatever, there's obviously problem solving, but maybe there's more yellow mixed in with the blue versus the red.
Mm. Yeah. See, one of the beautiful things, let's say that we're dealing with red and blue, exactly like you were talking about. Red and blue in their center, when they combine, it becomes expertise.
Mm,
You're an authority in your field. Now, just like you were saying before, you take that red and blue and mix it with yellow. That color blend is the mentor triad. I'm an expertise, or I'm an expert in what I know. I'm number one in my field, but I care about people. And so there's my balloons.
yeah.
Did I freeze again?
Yeah, it's actually doing that every time that happens, because I think the first time was a different effect. Um, I think, to be honest with you, I think it's actually going by your hand motions. I think there's something you're doing with your hand that sort of signals that. No, you're good, man. But it probably is going to ask you to back out and join back. That's weird. I've never seen that happen.
I'm going to keep my hands firmly at my side for the remainder of this conversation. So yeah, okay. If we're dealing with the red and the blue tendencies that then mix in with yellow personality tendencies, what we actually get into is the mentor triad, where you are an expert in your field, but you have a desire to support and help other people with the knowledge that you have. Now, let's say that we were to take that into its extreme mentor triad becomes the disavowal triad, which is essentially you're dead to me. It's the desire to essentially just ghost people, because you get into your yellow extreme, that's passive aggressive. There's a desire to just treat somebody like they don't exist or ignore them. The blue is you're not worth my time, you're too stupid for me to even deal with. And then the red feeds this idea where, hey, I'm preserving my emotional state. I don't care about your feelings. And it's really interesting to see this particular archetype of red, blue, and yellow. It's in so many of the hospital dramas that we see on television. It's like the Dr. House. Such a gifted doctor and expert in his field, but really struggles with deciding whether or not he wants to be supportive to somebody. You know, that could be the patient that they're helping, or it could be someone that's learning from them. Or, you know, then the flip side is just total abandonment because of those extreme red, blue tendencies. Are you still here? Oh, damn. Oh. We can't hear me still. Check.
Yeah, I'm here. There's actually I just now noticed this. There is on my side, there's a visual effects. Oh, it says we can't change it while recording, but there's an option for visual effects on the side. I just now noticed this. And I think have you ever used have you ever seen like a camera, like you hold up your hand or something and it starts recording the camera, like on your phone?
Yeah.
There's a setting for that. I think some of the hand motions you're using is for some reason is doing that.
I'm sorry. So when I came back in and launched into the thing about red, blue, and yellow, was that you weren't hearing me at that point, huh?
You know what's crazy is the balloon was yellow and you were actually talking about yellow. So but I can't remember exactly what you said.
Okay,
we were talking about
this is because I went into a whole thing about Dr. House on the television show, and I don't think that any of that was actually. I was just talking to to Riverside. Let me just say here. Okay, so when red and blue merge in their center, then it becomes expertise. But then you add the yellow component into that, and it becomes the mentor triad. So it's a desire to take other people under my wing, and with my expertise, I can guide them and shape them with my knowledge, so that they can be number one, just like me. Now, if we take all of these triads or color blends, also have associated extremes. So if I'm an individual who's acting out of extreme red, extreme blue, and extreme yellow, then instead of being a mentor, I'm a disavowing person. I'm the person who's saying, you're dead to me. We're never talking again. And that's based on you being too stupid, the fact that you've betrayed me, and then ultimately you're not worth my attention anymore because I have other goals that I need to attend to. And so it really gets into a place where the colors of like red, blue, and yellow. For instance, I once had a personal trainer, and we worked together for many years. And then there came time where we had a disagreement, where he had forgotten to charge me for several sessions, and then found that out later on, and then wanted, and then my blue tendencies were like, no, that's not right. And also my green tendencies said that. And then from that moment on, we just stopped working together. And even though I'd go to the gym, he would never acknowledge me. So one of my most, intimate relationships is somebody really being a mentor, helping me sculpt, would then completely ghost me. And so this is just an example of how, you can be somebody who really is desiring to support and take people under your wing. And then you perceive that you deserve more. In that case, that's exactly what happened with him. And then that leads us into an extreme behavior where it becomes a complete reversal of that initial relationship.
Yeah, and I think I think the key important thing right here is to understand there's not much you can do about other people, and that's not an excuse. I'm not excusing their behavior, but like you can understand at least how you operate, how it affects you, and also understand, like I was saying earlier, these people are operating on it's like the same frame, it's just different traits on that frame. So like if you know about yourself that you are very driven or very assertive in some situations, and maybe you have to apply that to certain degrees in certain situations where it's helpful. Other people are the same thing with the rules. Other people are the same thing with, what was it for the green, the morals of the group.
Fairness,
everybody,
yeah,
the fairness. It's the same framework. It's just a different trait for that person. And I think once you understand that, I think it's sort of, once you have the compassion of that, understand that person is just operating from how their personality operates. It again, it's not an excuse, but it at least helps you understand the reactions, like why a person reacts the way they do, what motivates them, what inspires them. I hate to use this word, but what triggers them. Trigger is just like
what sends them into their extreme. Sure.
Yeah.
And, when we test low in a color, that's a good indication that a personality trait isn't actually very well integrated in ourselves. What I mean by this is, like, in relationships, there are different perspectives, but sometimes we end up seeing something in somebody else that we actually don't have fully integrated within ourselves. And that's what's causing our averse reaction to it. So let's say somebody has strong red tendencies. Well, then, and somebody who tests really low in that, they may just immediately perceive an individual who's disagreeable as being aggressive. And so this gets down to this fundamental point of where I was saying earlier that this can save your relationship, but more importantly, it can save yourself. Because in our relationships, there's this great quote that I'll use here. There's something about you I really don't like about me. And so often we're intent on projecting things that are struggles within ourselves onto other people, and then asking them to adjust their behavior. So when I would take the test and I would score really low in purple personality tendencies, I had an issue with being consistent. As a result of it, in my relationships, that's what I was looking for. I was looking to be complemented and supplemented by strong purple personality tendencies. And as a result, I was constantly waiting for other people to show up for me. When they wouldn't show up for me the way that I wanted, then my expectations, this is a strong, extreme blue tendencies, would be disappointed, and then I would get blameful. And that's my extreme yellow tendencies, which kick in when I'm enraged. Essentially, I would go into a martyr state, and that's defined by extreme yellow, green, and blue tendencies combining. There was a point where I realized that who actually wasn't showing up was me for me. Yep. And this was the big aha that I had about centered purple personality tendencies. And this gets into where our technology is truly valuable to individuals. It can be valuable to couples or corporations in the way that we can better understand how everybody else sees the world and, get on the same page. But when I look at my personal self and I look at my ideal self and I see a big difference, I think that ideal self is going to bring me more fulfillment. Well, how can I actually change my behavior so that I more appropriately embody that ideal version? And so I know this test well enough that I was going, well, how do I actually grow purple personality tendencies? And it came down to organizing my entire week based off of this color wheel. It came down to setting routines and reminders in my phone that would allow me to, in action, develop new habits. And this gets into an emerging field right now called volitional personality change, where IQ is something that is rather fixed. It's very hard to improve your IQ, but personality itself is rather fluid, as we've been talking about this. It changes in different contexts. And so there is a capacity where we can, through will, change aspects of our personality if we know strategically what we need to do in order to change it. And now when I take the test, my purple has shot up considerably. And it's allowed me to be a much more consistent, reliable, well-rounded individual. So for any individual who's, let's say that they're a coach and they're working with clients and the clients are stuck, or maybe the clients don't even see that they're stuck, but you can see it. And you want a metric to figure out, well, this is where they started off and this is where they are once I finished working with them. You can use this test as a literal way to not only navigate what kind of habits or actions, behaviors do we need to incorporate in order to get more to that ideal self, but you can actually show them after the period where you've been working with them, hey, do you notice that after the past 3 months that we've been working together, how much closely your colors reflect your ideal self here? What we've actually created is a metric for people to be able to receive algorithmic instructions on how to adjust their behaviors so that they can experience more satisfaction, joy, and appreciation. Now, and then that appreciation is so key because it is the cure to the narcissistic entitlement that I was talking about earlier. That idea that I'm looking at my surroundings and what I observe is not enough, and so I need more. And suddenly I'm anxious and I'm ungrateful and I'm asking things from other people. Now that's what's causing all of the conflict in my relationships, as opposed to I look at my surroundings and I see all of these blessings. It's so obvious that I live in all of this abundance. Suddenly the prison that I've been seeing myself in through appreciation and a state of mind that we call endowment, it becomes a paradise. And this is why we called this the personality color matrix, because ultimately this is your choice. And the whole concept of those Matrix movies was you choose your, you choose, and that is what makes you human. You can choose to remain asleep or you can choose to awaken. You can choose to see your life as a prison or you can see your life as a paradise. And ultimately, we see what we seek.
Well, that's a really good way to put that. And I think we have to be willing to see it. I think we had to, we can't turn a blind eye. We were talking about lenses earlier in this, how we see everything, other people. This is basically all through a lens. We can't restrict ourselves, I think, with the lens of not being able to see the full truth about who we are. And you mentioned earlier about what did you, I can't remember exactly how you said it. This has been a great conversation. There's been so much to hear that we've said. Like this has really been fun. Because I think it's just something that's so important. But we were talking earlier about I forgot how you said it, but
I could have been talking about righteous excision.
No, I forget, but
okay.
So you were talking about when you see yourself in others that you don't necessarily like that, like the shadow and all that kind of stuff. And I think that's a really good way to sort of bring this into that, I think, is because that shadow is a real thing. Like I've met people before that I just do not like for no reason whatsoever. And same thing, I've met people who like me for what seems like no reason whatsoever. And we're like the same person. Like we're like the same people. Dude, I'm like, oh, that makes sense. The reason they don't like me is because this is about, like, once I get to know the person, I'm like, dude, sometimes I act that way. Like that's me sometimes, like that's why this person doesn't like me. And I don't know if they're aware of that. And the same thing with myself. I've seen that in other people. Like, I don't like this guy for what seems like no reason. Oh, he did this thing. Okay, well, I've done that before. That was a dick move. Like, it's just like, it's just crazy how we see ourselves in these people like this. And I think like to dislike a person for no reason. I mean, it's clearly something in yourself. Like, there's clearly something going on there.
Yeah. This gets into projection and
exactly, yeah.
and then the mirroring, because one of the greatest exercises that I ever did in allowing myself to transcend my yellow victim mentality, that would be extreme yellow victim mentality, was an exercise where I started talking about the person that I was in a relationship with that was causing me all of this misery and conflict. And I stopped referring to them by their name and I started referring to them as my other self.
That's
and
powerful.
Suddenly I realized that the lack of safety that this person was experiencing with me was actually a lack of safety that I experienced with myself. Because I have these extreme blue tendencies that lead me to be very critical and do a lot of negative self-talk.
Even of yourself. Yeah.
Most of all. Most of all, I am so mean to myself in my head whenever I make a mistake, or when something there's some kind of a technical issue that if I had just been smart enough, this really speaks to that concept of extreme blue and how they will ruminate over past failures. And then that can lead to depression. It can lead to overthink. It's essentially a lot of neuroticism, and it shows up specifically in the extreme blue and the extreme yellow tendencies. The extreme yellow tendencies, they'll ruminate about past failures in relationships. Oh, if I had just said this, or if I say that, well, how are they going to react, and will that lead them to abandon me? Whereas with the extreme blue tendencies, it's usually about material things or the problems that they couldn't solve, not necessarily the relationships that they couldn't heal. And so when those colors combine, the both the centered blue and centered yellow, they're so thoughtful. But then when you get into the extremes, they become neurotic. It's overthinking, it's anxiety, it's depression. And once again, the best way to break yourself out of that would be developing a plan and getting into your body. So for me, that really showed up as meditating every day. I got into this concept of what are these rituals that is an enriching ritual that I can do routinely that keeps me from going into my extreme. We're all going to go into our extremes. It's inevitable. It's like missing the mark. But the concept is, first of all, how long do you stay in your extreme before you're able to use the complementary color or whatever strategies you can learn and get provided by the color matrix in order to find your way back to center? But then how do you begin to work on yourself so that you're less tempted to go into your extreme as often as you might? How do you work on yourself so that you get less triggered? And we believe that habitual and rituals center individuals. So that essentially became, well, I need to have a mind in ritual, a body in ritual, or a physical in ritual, and a spiritual in ritual. And so I really started thinking about, well, how do I show up for myself daily or weekly in an aspect that fills my tank so that I show up for myself? And this is the flexing of that purple muscle that was necessary in order to develop it. So I figured out, okay, I need to meditate every day. How? My particular color blend is blue, orange, and green, which is the creative triad, but in its extreme becomes the unreliable triad. I am really not good at doing the same thing every day. And so I developed a limiting belief about myself that I couldn't meditate. It's just figuring out how to do it with the least amount of resistance. And so what I ended up finding was that a 10-minute meditation at the very beginning of my day in the shower was the perfect recipe. And that's how I've been able to do that consistently for the past 2.5 months. Then it was moving into the gym for my physical and ritual. I need to be able to get into that strong centered red aspect of myself. So I feel really good about how I'm showing up and taking care of myself. And now we're we're a little over 2 months into my new gym membership, and we're down 20 pounds. And then for the spiritual and ritual, it was going into a Bible study, or I just encourage anyone of whatever faith that you surround yourself in that spirit, and then allow that to fill you with the compassion. And that faith will ultimately, hopefully, lead you always towards a more centered and connected place. And when I started practicing these in rituals, these habits routinely, it really changed the story that I began to tell about myself. And what ended up happening was my confidence spiked. The key with these in rituals is not to advertise it. You don't do your rituals and then go to everybody and say, hey, guess what I did today? I'm really on top of my stuff. But what actually ends up happening is that over time, having that confidence in yourself and that really positive story that you're showing up for yourself will then affect you, and you'll stay in your center more often. The longer and more often that you are in your center, the more confidence other people have in you.
Yep.
It just naturally is a side effect.
I am so glad. And I know we got to close. I don't want to keep you too much over the time, but maybe we can close with this. I was hoping we got to this, which is alignment. We're talking about alignment, like being in alignment with, I think, what your colors are. And so like we're talking about this, man, and we're talking about the left half, or at least what I'm looking at is the left, the red, purple, blue. I think that's where I sort of resonate the most.
We call it the
And dude,
realist.
it's like, yeah, well, it's like when you're in alignment with that. Like I tell people all the time, like, you know, I think I operate in a red a lot. I don't know. I do have a lot of rules both for myself and for my company, but I mean, it's like our clients have needs and we operate based on that. But for the most part, I'm making these rules because of the sort of direct, like the movement towards the shared goal that we have as a company. Like, so that's sort of where, and so all the rules that we have about, you know, attendance or whatever it is, quality, all this kind of stuff is in the direction of that that shared goal. And then it's like with the blue, the problem solving stuff, you know, like I don't know. It's all these things sort of combined, but it's like when I just put a quote up yesterday on social media. It was, I think I said productivity cheat code or something like that. And I think I said something along the lines of get to a place where you can get more thrill out of the hunt than you can about the catch. So you get more thrill out of hunting than you do about catching. And so like I see that I see that in myself a lot, because I tell people all the time, if I could take that, when all these different things are in alignment, the red, the purple, the blue, for me, they're all in alignment, and I'm on this direction towards this thing, and I'm going towards this goal. It's like, to me, the journey towards that goal is more important than the end goal. I mean, yes, I want to have these goals, I want to have these wins and these kind of things, but it's like that drive or that hunt or that competition towards that. I don't know. It's just like it I don't know I don't know a way to explain this. It's like it makes me feel, I don't want to say alive, because that implies I don't feel alive if I'm not doing that. But it just, I don't know. It's just like this energy. You know what I mean? And I just tell people, if I could take that and bottle it and sell it, I'd make a fortune.
Yeah. Well, so you're inherently rooted in the realist perspective, as we were saying earlier, with the red, purple, and blue. But then you get into this thing of, hey, it's not always just about the results. Sometimes
right.
the point is the journey itself.
Yep.
And so at that point, you're actually shifting. That quote that you said is rather green, and it's all about the meaning that we find along the way. Find excitement. Then now we're tapping into the orange. It can be fun to actually be on the journey, not just getting the results. And then there's a concept of how do we grow in our own self without having the results. And that's speaking to orange, yellow, and green. That you know, in a way, it's rather romantic as opposed to realistic. I say romantic not in the sense of Casanova, but in the sense of a dreamer, or the possibilities, or rather than looking for the tangible materials, immersing ourselves in these intangible experiences of life that deliver the same sense of fulfillment and satisfaction as something that is, you know, material in my hands. Here's my award, my trophy that I got. And what's so beautiful is that is your realistic perspective also becoming whole through the understanding and the integration of what, you know, the wisdom of the warmth side. Sometimes as a man, we really want to define ourselves by like our ability to bring home the catch.
Right.
You know, but then if we bring home the catch, but we are we're not warm, and even in our ability to be warm to ourselves, then we're sort of losing and depriving ourselves of some of the satisfaction that can be gained there. It's not always just about the results. Sometimes it's about the emotional and spiritual connections that we make.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of this stuff really comes down to, if you're building a business or a family or a career, whatever it is, I think a lot of it comes down to who you become in the process. Because I don't think a lot of times you can't really get that end goal unless you become that person. Like I tell people all the time in the coaching space, I think one of the best ways to achieve a goal, or to achieve a set of goals, is to simply become that person. If you want to be, you know, a CEO level business owner, okay, well, what does that person do? That person's out networking. That person's working late. That person's, you know, working hard on the right things or delegating the right things. I mean, so it's like becoming that person in the process. Fitness is a really good example. Like it's crazy. It's crazy that the paradox that exists in this. When you become fit, you don't just get there and then you just stay there and that's just it and you're good for the rest of your life. Like it's a process. Like the journey is the prize. I don't know how else. The bracelet that I'm wearing right now says the journey is the prize. I had this custom made. It says the journey is the prize, because that's like it's who we become along that process, you know. And I mean, don't get me wrong. The goal is 100% yes. There's a lot of times, especially like with a business, there's other people attached to the goal, the success of that goal, and I get that. But it's like, man, like who you become along that path is I think, a lot of times more valuable than the destination that you think it leads to, for sure.
I love that. Very well said.
Yeah. Listen, man, I'm gonna let you get out of here. I know we went over a little bit. Do you have? I know you sent me some stuff. If you want to shout it out here now, a website or anything. I know you said you have a book coming up.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, anybody that's that's listening right now, if you found this insight that we provided interesting and you want to learn more, I'd encourage you to visit book.thecolormatrix.com, where you can pre-order a copy of our book that's coming out July 25th, The Personality Color Matrix, the transformative tool to unlock joy, upgrade your awareness, and reconnect. And for a limited amount of time, when you buy that book for $30, you actually get the full online personality assessment from thecolormatrix.com for free. That's a $100 value for free. You can also get a digital workbook that's valued at $20 that allows you to dive into understanding the colors right now. That's also free. And then you get an invitation to join our Facebook mastermind group, where if you have any questions, you can drop them in those comments and you'll get a response from myself or my mother, who invented this technology. And we can speak clarity into how to use this technology, and whether it's your coaching business or your organization or just even in your own personal life, in order to salvage and repair some fractured relationships that maybe are a pain point for you. It doesn't have to be this way. I mean, my mother and I, this book is essentially about the reconciliation of our relationship. We had a major falling out in 2020. And if you're listening to CNN post 2024 election, they're basically saying, if you're having uncomfortable conversations at the Thanksgiving table, it's time to cut that person out of your life, sacrifice that relationship, burn that bridge. The reality is, at that point, you're practicing the righteous excision, and that tree is hacking itself in two. The thing that I can tell you is that there's nothing more fulfilling in this life than maintaining those relationships and those connections. They are the bread of existence. And so it's on us to show up, just like in the Matrix. We got to be the one that our relationship needs. And so that requires us to take responsibility, accountability, and awaken, become as self-aware as we can be, to take our own responsibility and also practice grace. And this comes down to, in the color matrix analogy, you take the red pill and the blue pill and the purple pill and the orange pill, the yellow pill, and the green pill. And suddenly you'll wake up to seeing this code in reality, in all of the communication and the actions that you observe. And as a result, your grace, your understanding, your appreciation, most importantly, will all spike. And you'll wake up one day going, wow, I'm actually not just happy, I'm full of joy, full of gratitude.
Yeah, for sure, man. And send me that book. I'd love to get that book, or send me a link to that book. I should say, I'll purchase the book is what I'm trying to say. But only if it's paperback, because hardcovers are just way too rigid for me. I guess that's the orange talking. I don't know.
Well, yeah,
but I don't know. There's something about a hardcover book, man. I'm just like, this thing is annoying, but I'm joking. Whatever you have, I will say,
I've never seen a prettier hardcover book than the one that you can pre-order right now.
Okay. Well, I'll do
it. Yeah. You visit book.thecolormatrix.com. You're going to see the cover and you're going to go, ooh, I want to read that. I want that on my bookshelf.
I don't know, man. Some of them, like I'm reading a book right now, Jordan Peterson's new book, We Who Wrestle with God, and it's a hardcover. I'd rather have, I don't know, just to me, it's just easier to read. I feel like it's a little more flexible, but maybe not. But yeah, if you send me a link, I'll definitely look at it. I'd like to see about that.
Oh, I certainly will.
So one thing I ask everybody before we close, if you could share one of the most important lessons you've ever learned, one of the most valuable lessons. It can be from your personal life, if you're comfortable sharing, or your career. What do you think that would be? I know it's kind of hard to pinpoint the most important.
No, I think that this is a great way to sum it up. Entitled, we fail. If we feel like we're deserving and we're just observing all of that scarcity, entitled, we fail. Endowed, we succeed. When we feel all of those blessings and the abundancy. And so this really comes down to we see what we seek, and life can be a prison or a paradise. You choose. You have all the power.
I like that. And one more time, if you can share that quote that you said earlier, it was so profound. You said something, I don't like this about you, about me. Or
There's something about you I really don't like about me.
Yeah, I like that. There's something about you I really don't like about me. Yeah. Corbin, it's been nice talking to you, man. I'm going to stop the video just for a second. If you can hang out, I'll explain the upload to you and all that good stuff. But been a really good conversation here today.
Thank you so much for having me, Cody.
Hey guys, I appreciate you tuning in today. If you enjoyed this episode, you can find more content at Pure Wisdom Podcast. This is on Facebook, Instagram, Rumble, TikTok, YouTube, Spotify, Amazon Music, and Apple and Google Podcasts. There you can like, share, subscribe, and we will see you next time.